Hi, as always, I am Stashin, and this is the Mix Blender channel. So today, I came to talk about shipwrecks. As soon as we think about shipwrecks, one name definitely comes to mind, Titanic. But there are many other ships that have wrecked before and after the Titanic. So let's explore what those are. Here are some of the top shipwrecks and why they happened. One of them is the Empress of Ireland. What exactly was this ship? In early 1904, work started at Fairfield Shipbuilding and Engineering in Glasgow, Scotland. The liners, designed by Francis Elgar, were specified to be twin-screw liners with service speeds of 18 knots, which is about 33 kilometers per hour or 21 miles per hour. They looked exactly the same, featuring 2 funnels and 2 masts, and could each carry just over 1,500 passengers. Originally, they were going to be named Empress of Germany and Empress of Austria, but later changed respectively to Empress of Britain and Empress of Ireland, following the implementation of a policy that any future Canadian Pacific ship named in the Empress format would be respectively named after a dependency or colony of the British Empire. Empress of Ireland's safety features included 10 watertight bulkheads that divided the hull into 11 compartments. These compartments could be sealed off by closing 24 watertight doors. All 11 bulkheads stretched from the double bottom all the way up to just below the shelter deck, which was about 3 decks above the waterline. The vessels could stay afloat even if up to 2 adjacent compartments were open to the sea. However, the critical issue in her 1914 design was that unlike the Titanic, where watertight doors could close at the press of a switch on the ship's bridge, the watertight doors on the Empress of Ireland had to be closed manually. In the wake of the Titanic disaster, the Empress of Ireland, like many other liners, had her life-saving equipment upgraded. When she first entered service in 1906, she was equipped with standard wooden lifeboats. But in 1912, they were replaced with 16 steel lifeboats, mounted in conventional radial davits. Under these, there were another 26 wooden collapsible lifeboats, all of which combined had a capacity of 1,686 people, 280 more than the ship was actually licensed to carry. Empress of Ireland was launched on 27th of January 1906. With her original configuration, she required a crew of 373 and had berths for 1,542 passengers in 4 classes on 7 decks. If we talk about accommodation on the Empress of Ireland, the first class quarters, located amidships on the upper and lower promenade and shelter decks, could accommodate up to 310 passengers when fully booked. These accommodations included access to the open boat deck and 2 enclosed promenade decks that circled the full exterior of the upper and lower promenade decks. Situated on the upper promenade deck, the music room featured built-in sofas and a grand piano, all surrounding one of the ship's standout attractions, the glass dome over the first-class dining room. Also on this deck was the top landing of the first-class main staircase, which, like the one aboard the Titanic, faced aft and extended down 2 decks to the entrance of the first-class dining room. Down on the lower promenade deck, you found the first-class library. If we talk about the final crossing, the Empress of Ireland departed Quebec City for Liverpool at 4:30 local time, Eastern Standard Time, on the 28th of May 1914. It was manned by a crew of 420 and carried 1,057 passengers, which was roughly 2/3 of her total capacity. In first class, the list of passengers was relatively small, with only 87 booked passengers. However, the small number did not exclude some rather notable figures from both sides of the Atlantic. Second class saw a considerably larger booking at just over half capacity, with 253 passengers. This was thanks in large part to a big group of Salvation Army members and their families, numbering 170 in total, who were on their way to attend the 3rd International Salvation Army Congress in London. Third class saw the largest booking, which, with 717 passengers, was nearly filled to capacity. This complement reflected greatly the typical mix of steerage travellers seen on eastbound crossings aboard Empress of Ireland and her running mates on the North Atlantic, similar to those seen on westbound crossings from Liverpool. While on westbound crossings, Filled-class passengers were predominantly diverse mixes of immigrants, eastbound crossings saw equally diverse blends of former immigrants. From both Canada and the United States, returning to their native countries in Europe, many were returning to visit relatives, while others were in the process of re-emigrating and resettling. Henry George Kendall had been promoted to captain of the Empress of Ireland at the beginning of the month, and it was his first trip down the St. Lawrence River in command of her. But sadly, the Empress of Ireland reached Pointe-au-Père in the early hours of May 29, 1914, where the pilot disembarked. She then continued on her normal outward course around 76 degrees east, and soon spotted the masthead lights of the SS Storstad, a Norwegian collier, on her starboard bow at a few miles away. Similarly, the Storstad, which was abreast of Metis Point and on nearly the same course around 259 degrees, also spotted the Empress of Ireland's masthead lights. These first sightings happened in clear weather, but soon fog rolled in around the ships. They had to keep blowing their fog whistles repeatedly. Then, at 1:56 local time, the Storstad collided with the Empress of Ireland on its starboard side near midships. While Storstad stayed afloat, the Empress of Ireland suffered severe damage. A gaping hole in her side caused the lower decks to flood rapidly, leaving the crew in a panic. Captain Kendall used a megaphone to instruct the crew of the Storstad to keep her engines running. Full power and plug the hull. But the Empress of Ireland continued her forward motion, and the current of the St. Lawrence shoved Storstad away. After about 5 seconds, 60,000 imperial gallons, or 270,000 litres of water per second, began pouring into the Empress of Ireland. The Empress of Ireland lurched heavily to starboard and began to settle by the stern. There was no time to shut the watertight doors. Water poured in through the open portholes, some just a few feet above the waterline, flooding the passageways and cabins. Most of the passengers and crew in the lower decks drowned quickly. Those on the upper decks were awakened by the collision and quickly boarded the lifeboats on the boat deck. Within minutes, the list of the ship was so severe that port lifeboats couldn't be launched. Some passengers tried to do so, but the lifeboats just crashed into the side of the ship, spilling their occupants into the frigid water. 5 starboard lifeboats were launched successfully, while a 6th and 7th capsized during lowering. The lights and power on the Empress of Ireland eventually failed 5 or 6 minutes after the collision, plunging the ship into darkness. 10 minutes after the collision, the ship rolled violently over her starboard side, allowing as many as 700 passengers and crew to crawl out of the portholes and decks onto her port side. The ship lay on her side for a minute or two, having seemingly run aground. Shortly afterwards, at 02:10, about 14 minutes after the collision, the bow rose briefly out of the water, and the ship finally sank. Hundreds of people were thrown into the near-freezing water. The disaster resulted in the deaths of 1,012 people. After being rescued by the Storstad, Kendall travelled directly to the bridge to confront the recently awoken Captain Thomas Anderson, saying, "You have just sunk my ship." There were only 465 survivors. 4 children out of 138, 41 women out of 310, 172 men out of 609, and 248 crew out of 420. The fact that most passengers were asleep when the ship sank, many not even waking up from the collision, led to a tragic loss of life as they were trapped in their cabins, especially on the starboard side where the collision occurred. For the information on the other wrecked ships, please watch part 2. So that's it for today's video. Please subscribe to the channel for more videos. So bye folks!